My birth mother never met me, and I never met her, but she wrote me a song. And I want to read that here real quick, but first I have to kind of give the backstory. And I'm actually going to tell this story at greater length. I'm getting ready to post a couple of videos. Anyway, my biological mother, I found out who she was this year. And to make a long story short, she was schizophrenic, and she had to give me up for adoption. She was an institution when I was born. They took me from her because she wasn't fit to raise a child. She was brilliant. Her grandpa was a no, her dad was a Pulitzer Prize winning author. Her first husband went to Cambridge. She had five husbands, but she was being groomed for high society. And when her parents found out that she was schizophrenic, they basically disowned her. She was in institutions. They gave her a trust fund, but a lot of times she was in and out. She struggled with homelessness, and she was in these institutions where they gave her shock treatment because it was back in the day when they didn't quite know how to deal with schizophrenia, and hers was pretty bad. Well, anyway, during the shock treatment, the Lord showed up to her and she got converted, and that defined the course of the rest of her life. And I knew growing up that I had a schizophrenic biological mother, and that's all I knew. But my wife helped me find her this year. Now, she died 10 years ago, but we got her obituary and went to the church where she had been going for the last 10 years of her life to meet the people who knew her. And it's been a beautiful experience. And they had a second memorial service just for us so they could all give testimonies of my mom and who she was. And she knew the Lord and she knew grace the way I do. And not only that, but there are parallels between my life and hers and my upbringing and hers that are so amazing. And the reason I know this is because the pastor kept a folder of songs that she wrote. She would write poems. God would just give her things, and she would go out to people and give them poems. That was her ministry in the church, and they were all prophetic. And this was a church that didn't function in the gifts of the Spirit, but my mom didn't care. Now, this is a special lady. She decided she was going to get baptized at midnight and called the church and made them get over there and baptize her. The other thing, one story they told me was that one day she told a couple that they were going to have Christmas at their house, and she invited the whole church, I think. But there were a lot of people there, and they did it. This church is amazing how they bend over backwards to take care of people. And so they all did it, and the story goes that my mom said, "Okay, I'm going to say grace now." And she stood up and proceeded to sing spontaneously for like 15 minutes. So everybody who tells stories about my mom has tears in their eyes and a smile on their face. And they all say, yeah, she was a special lady because the schizophrenia was real. She was very difficult to deal with. But they bore her not as a charity case, but as a sister in the Lord, and they discovered the treasure in her, and she was able to use her gifts. Anyway, like I said, the pastor had this big folder of songs that she and writings about her life because she wrote. She was a writer, and the shock treatment messed with her mind. So she was like a child. Apparently, everybody said she was like a little girl. So if she was having a bad day, you knew it. All of her emotions were on her face. She was explosive when she was angry, and she did that in church. I mean, she was just like, she was who she was, and you were going to get it. And she valued truth above everything, and she would not let you apparently get away with anything uh, dishonest or, and she would just come right up to you and tell you what she thought, which is just awesome. No fear. But anyway, I think it was like what we'll be like in the kingdom except she had flesh and a negative side, but we'll be like little children. We'll just, if we feel something, we'll cry at a heartbeat. Jesus cried in a heartbeat. He could cry one minute, laugh the next, and he was just completely transparent. And when I found out who my mom was, I was like, man, I just want to be like her. And when I read her hymns, I want her simple relationship with the Lord, and it really sealed the my sense of grace. My sense of grace has been growing for years through all the difficult church situations I've been in, and I want to talk about that in my testimony soon. But anyway, this one hymn, like I said, this song she wrote is for me, and I know it. I know it's a prophecy for me. And later on, when I tell my story in another video, if you ever watch that, you know, the 11 people that are going to watch it, you'll see. But here's how the words go. It goes, he simply could not run the race. He couldn't win the race. And to friends he brought disgrace. But there was one above them all who brought him infinite grace. Move on, he urged, no time to tarry. Soon you'll be at my feast and merry. Ignore all the blows, ignore all arrows. Don't be like the fallen sparrows. So it came that he finished at last, sobbing over his lot. So he thought he lost. But Jesus wiped his tear-stained face and said, cheer up, son, you've won your race. My mom's poems were very simple, but that's like the story of my life. Jesus showed me in the last couple of years that we have a friend at the judgment seat. And for a lot of my story, since I became a Christian, has to do with being fearful. I was one who would shrink back in shame when he came because I didn't realize that my judge is my advocate and he's my friend and he's my physician. And my mom knew him in that way. So I'm going to read it one more time and then I'll go. He simply could not win the race, and to friends he brought disgrace. But there was one above them all who brought him infinite grace. Move on, he urged, no time to tarry. Soon you'll be at my feast to merry. Ignore all the blows, ignore all arrows. Don't be like the fallen sparrows. So it came the man finished last, sobbing over his lot. But Jesus wiped his tear-stained face and said, cheer up, son. You've run your race. No, I'm sorry, you've won your race. Either way, run or won, doesn't matter. We'll be in his presence. Amen.